For the past few months, we've been sailing in Alaska and British Columbia. Cheers!
Cheers.
And last week, Ron took us further south on the Inside Passage, to the exotic beaches of Calvert Island.
Today we're leaving Inside Passage and we will head down, I guess, 32 miles today from Fury Cove, where we are now. It's pretty calm today, which is, I guess, good. We're going past this Cape Caution today, which can be pretty bad if you have high winds. But today there's no wind, so probably no sailing, but we'll see when we get out.
Fury Cove is a popular stop before or after crossing the Queen Charlotte Sound, which is the water between the mainland Canada and Vancouver Island. Over here, behind me is Cape Caution. Over there, and we were looking forward to a nice downwind sail today. The forecast had shown 15 knots from the northeast, but there's no wind at all. So that's a little bit strange, because it had shown for several days that today was going to be some wind. So we've been motoring since this morning, and we decided to go a little further than we first thought. So instead of going into Miles Inlet, we'll continue another 15 miles after that to London Harbour, because tomorrow we go to Port McNeill on Vancouver Island, so that will make that passage shorter. So we'll arrive earlier in the day. So we've just been listening to podcasts this morning and enjoying the sun. It's very nice weather. And as Johan said before, we have now left the Inside Passage in British Columbia. And now we are heading for Vancouver Island. We had a great time here in northern BC. We were really lucky with the weather, seen a lot of animals, and visited a lot of nice places.
It's quite shallow here outside Cape Caution. The whole area here to the southwest of the Cape, it's between 10 to 20 meters deep. And you can really tell even today when it's this calm that the waves are building here. Just a couple of miles in that direction it's deep ocean, and in here, like I said, 10 to 20 meters. So of course the waves get pushed up by that. Finally some wind. We're doing 5 knots, broad reach, and it's still sunny, so really nice. The swell is beginning to die out a bit here, so that's nice. Pretty smooth for being open water. We have around 20 miles to go to the anchorage, And hopefully this wind will last the whole way. That's the buoy for Allen Rocks, and what you hear is the foghorn.
The wind increased and we did 6.5 knots over ground, with 15 knots of apparent wind, which means that the true wind was around 21 knots.
It's early morning and we're leaving London Harbour to go to Port McNeill. It's about 20 miles, nautical miles, across the sound here. And hopefully the current will be with us. That's why we need to leave this early. It's not early, it's 7 o'clock. So a couple of days from now there is an election in Sweden, and for that reason we have ordered these election envelopes, and they arrived luckily today to Port McNeill, so we'll be able to vote.
Yeah, we will vote by mail, and it was really good timing because we're leaving tomorrow. So we'll fill them in now, and then we need 2 witnesses, and people in the harbour office will help us.
So now we have voted, the votes are in the mail, so hopefully they will reach Sweden before Wednesday next week. Our next big task to tackle was to go through Seymour Narrows and to time the passage at slack tide. Johnston Strait is 60 nautical miles long, and it's the major pathway between Queen Charlotte Sound in the north and the Georgia Strait in the south. At Seymour Narrows, the big flow of water gets squeezed, which creates extreme currents and whirlpools. Right now we have pretty thick fog and there's a lot of traffic here. and a lot of logs in the water. So we try to keep a good lookout. As you can see, the visibility isn't very good. Slack tide tomorrow is at 10 in the morning at Seymour Narrows, so we really need to time it. It's becoming a spring tide soon, so tomorrow the current is going to be 14 knots in Seymour Narrows when it's at the highest. So we hope to be able to go through at slack, because afterwards we're going to Campbell River, which is the next closest marina after the Narrows. And if we're too late there, the current runs up to I think 7 or 8 knots outside the marina there, so it could be a bit tricky to get in there. How's it going, Malin?
Full focus on our navigation. Passing a buoy up here. Today's going to be a long day. We have 68 nautical miles until our anchorage. We have to do that today so we can go through Seymour Narrows tomorrow at slack, and then with the current with us as we go out from it. So yeah, and we will have some current. Now also we'll go in Johnson Strait. This whole channel is called Johnson Strait. But since it's such a long day and such a long passage today, it doesn't really matter with the current, because half will be against and half with. Yeah, it's quite some traffic now this morning. Some ferries, but yeah, they all have AIS, so we're looking at the plotter.
It seems like the fog is starting to lift a bit.
Yeah, feels good. It's so strange with the current here. According to our charts, we should have 3.4 knots or 3.2 knots of current with us. So we should be doing like over 8 knots of speed. But instead we're doing 4.7. We're going even slower than we should be doing if it was no current at all. So yeah, it's so strange. I don't know if they are ever right, these currents that we have on our charts. It's so strange. And everyone we talk to says the same. Yeah, they're never correct. And I guess sometime during the day we should have the current with us. So we didn't make it all the way to Otter Cove yesterday. The current was so strong, so we weren't gonna be able to do any speed, and we would have arrived like at midnight. We don't want to go here when it's dark. So we stopped here in Billy Goat Bay, I think it's called, on Helmken Island. And now we're gonna leave. We will have the current with us, so hopefully it will go pretty fast. Yesterday was so strange with the currents. We had like the current against us the whole way, and then like a little bit of no current at all, and then against us again. But today we have about 20 miles to Otter Cove. We will stay until tomorrow, so it will be another day before we get to Campbell River. But the forecast also showed today that it was gonna blow like 18 knots of southeast winds in the Seymour Narrows and in the Discovery Passage, which is south of that. And yeah, you don't want to have strong winds against the current. and especially not there. So we wait another day until tomorrow, where it says there shouldn't be any wind at all. Gonna watch out for that kelp. And over there we have the seals.
Right now we have almost 5 knots of current. The sea is really boiling here. That fishing boat is struggling a bit, I don't know, with the steering. Oh wow, look at that.
What? What?
There's a whirlpool.
Where? We're pretty close to each other.
He's going faster than us through the water.
Now he's pulling in.
But now he's behind us because he took a different turn. This is just crazy. Right now it's almost 5.5, 6 knots of current.
We're doing 9.7 now.
Okay, so yeah, 5 knots.
So why is he going like that behind us?
I don't know, I don't think his boat is as directional stable as our boat. More sensitive. Is it exciting?
Yeah. Got a little bit of adrenaline kick there. But it has dropped now. Oh, jeez!
I don't know what his problem is. He's really struggling with oh yeah.
Oh, shit! Ah!
Those 5 nautical miles of the strait were quite thrilling, and Ron became a bit wobbly in the boiling water.
So it's Saturday morning and it's finally time for the Narrows today. We're leaving the anchorage now. It's early again. It's 7. The slack isn't until 10:30. But yeah, we want to make it in good time, and we'll wait outside in a bay. Yeah, you might see that I cut my hair and shaved my beard yesterday. So today is a lot calmer, not a lot of wind. It's yeah, like no wind at all. So I guess it's a good day to go through the Narrows. So it's not very far. We have around 10 miles down to the Narrows, and after that I think it's 7 more miles to Campbell River.
We motor slowly south, at 2 knots over ground, because of the 3 knots of current we had against us.
Just reading some facts about Seymour Narrows. It's pretty... 119 vessels had been sunk here by Ripple Rock in the middle. And in 1958 they decided to blow it up with a controlled explosion, because it was a really big hazard in the middle of the channel. They tunneled for 27 months to get in under the rock to place 1,350 tons of TNT. So it was the biggest non-nuclear explosion. I think the explosion in Halifax was in the harbor was bigger, but that was an accident. So and this was a planned explosion.
Off went the signal rocket. And at 9:31 a.m. Pacific time, off went the top of Ripple Rock. The blast was a complete success, lowering the top of Ripple Rock to nearly 50 feet below the surface at low tide.
So the reason it's so important to time this passage through the Seymour Narrows is because there's a lot of water moving through this channel. Every 6 hours, there's a big body of water that needs to go through these narrows. And that creates a really strong current. It can run up to 50 knots. And that creates big whirlpools that can even drag down big ships. So that's why we have decided to try to make it at slack. Some people say you can go through like an hour before up to an hour after slack. But when we reading in the guidebooks we have, they say that you should really try to do it at slack, and they even say that you shouldn't do it at the spring tide, which we're almost at now. The current today will be 14 knots. That's almost a maximum. But we'll try to do it at slack. Looking at the charts, the tides, like even a half an hour before slack, the current runs by 4.5 knots, and half an hour after it's like 3.5 knots. So I guess it's best to do it as close as possible. So the slack window, I mean, it's a point really, but they say that you have around 20 minutes to go through to make it without too much turbulence and current. And right now actually we're close to Plumber's Bay, which we're probably going to head in here now to wait, because the slack is 1 hour from now. So we'll have to wait here for 50 minutes about before we continue. Yeah. Swingy.
So how much was the time?
It's 25 now.
25. And 10:25 and 10:50 is slack. But we want to be like almost out of it at slack. So we're just waiting. Us and two other boats I can see here. The towing boat with a barge and a motor vessel.
Actually, I think it's around slack now. It was probably just a countercurrent over there, because we're doing 6 knots, 2,100 RPM, so that's what we normally do.
Det har redan vänt. 0,9 meters nu.
Enligt sjökort?
Ja.
Fucking MLS. Det var det inte innan.
Nej.
was a bit of an anticlimax. It was actually a lot more current yesterday when we went through the other narrows up north. But then it was full current. Now it's supposed to be slack, but I guess we have around 1.2 knots of current with us now. And it's supposed to be slack right now. So these, yeah, current charts aren't exact to the minute, but I guess it's maybe not an exact science, I don't know.
Closer to land, the water looked like it was boiling, and the tugboat behind us was skillfully maneuvering the barge in the curve after the narrows.
Yeah, we're not so lucky with the weather right now. We have 23 knots of wind, and yeah, the current is kicking up the waves. Right now we're doing 9.5, 9.7 over ground. So of course that's like, I don't know, 4.5, 4 knots of current with us, directly against 23 knots of wind from the south.
This weather is insane.
Okay, it's 5 meters.
We made it into the narrow harbor in Campbell River without problems, and in time to meet up with my family that was coming the day after. Hope you enjoyed this episode. It was made with love as always. Please give it a like and share, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much, and see you next week.